Hello, my name is Kent Roberts. I'm a colleague of Dr. Connie Williams, and today we're going to talk with Connie about English language development, or what some would call English as a second language. Dr. Williams currently conducts professional development seminars across the country on a wide range of issues related to English language learners. She has been an instructor of EL-related certificate programs in the state of California, as well as a professor of university courses designed for future teachers of ELs. Additionally, Dr. Williams has authored and co-authored instructional and assessment materials for teachers, paraprofessionals, and parents of ELs. I have known Connie for over 20 years, and it is a delight to be able to talk with her today about English language learners. Connie, welcome to today's discussion.
Thank you, Kent. Let me explain what we mean by the acronym ELD. It represents or stands for English Language Development. We used to call it ESL here in California, but now we refer to it as ELD. Today, when you think about ELD, you're really recognizing a discipline in and of itself. I really believe that ELD today commands the respect from the entire field of education, that it is unique, and that there are special skills that teachers need to be able to effectively and efficiently deliver ELD.
Connie, what are the essential components of learning language, and what makes a balanced ELD program?
When I think of language, I envision this sphere or this representation that you now see divided into three equal parts. One aspect of really mastering a language is being able to get the meaning, either through voice, verbalization, or through text, through print. So understanding what is said and read is one indicator of someone mastering a language. But in addition to that, there are expressive skills in language that students must master. And I'm referring now to the ways in which one is able to use the language. There are a variety of ways, or a variety of contexts, I should say, in which we use language, social and academic contexts. And so we have to be able to use language purposefully in any context in which, any communicative context in which we find ourselves. But in addition to that, we also have to use language with grammatical accuracy to really reflect a proficient English language speaker. The notions or the terms forms and functions are very popular today, and when we think about this three-wedged pie, synonymous with uses of language are the functions of language.
Let's move to another area. The term English language development came into being about 1998. Since that time, how has ELD instruction changed?
I believe this timeline reflects the emphasis of ELD or ESL instruction over a period of, say, 40 years. From about 1970 until about 1985, the emphasis was really on grammar. It was more on form. It was more on students learning the rules of the language so that they could apply them to actually speaking and reading and writing. And then we had a researcher by the name of Stephen Krashen who theorized that the best way to learn English was not to learn English. In other words, don't learn about the language. You don't have to learn the rules of the language. If you're just exposed to comprehensible language in a low anxiety environment, you will get the language. You will internalize the language. The theory and thinking that Krashen posited really lasted for about 20 years, and generally people bought into that methodology. It seemed like it was working. However, over years, we've also done studies, research studies, and we have begun to realize that the process is very slow if we just kind of use exposure as our only means of helping someone get a language. And so, just about the beginning of the new millennium, there began to be a surge of speakers, leadership, research papers that were saying, language instruction needs to be more explicit. In other words, we need to actually call out, highlight, and directly teach the functions of language to our students and the grammatical forms that are embedded in those functions. So what we have now, since about 2005 to the present time, is a methodology that's more balanced in nature. In other words, all three pieces of that language pie are working together. We still know that meaning is important for students to get. We don't want to teach the functions of language and the forms of language without students getting that in a meaningful context. So as I look at language instruction today, I see a more balanced approach.
It's interesting to hear about the dramatic changes that have taken place over the last 40 years. Connie, I've heard the term explicit instruction used, and what is the research that supports explicit instruction in ELD, and what are some of the changes taking place in that approach?
Some of the changes that some of the research, let's first start with the research. Dr. Robin Scarcella, a professor at UC Irvine, experienced a number of former English learners who had gotten into the UC program with high scores on their SAT tests. However, they were required to take remedial writing as in their freshman year. And what Dr. Scarcella noticed was that there were some very obvious mistakes that were exhibited by the students. In other words, there was a misuse of social language when writing an academic paper, for example. And so there wasn't a clear understanding of what kind of language was appropriate in an academic paper, for example. And she also noticed a limited vocabulary, along with misuse of definite and indefinite articles, errors in students' use of various kinds of pronouns, in addition to their inability to really command and use the different tenses of the English language. In addition to the work of Dr. Robin Scarcella, there have been other researchers who came to the same conclusion about the end of the 20th century that, maybe we need to take a look at being more explicit and direct in helping students acquire a second language, that just exposure is not sufficient for students to become proficient in English. And Dr. Lily Wong Fillmore at UC Berkeley was another one of the advocates of explicitly teaching functions and forms, or grammatical forms and uses of language. In addition to that, we've also had educators in the field. Susanna Dutro is an individual who became a real advocate of explicit instruction and systematic ELD instruction. And so a lot of school districts and states have had the kind of training for their ELD teachers to be able to learn how to explicitly teach language in the ELD context.